everybody, welcome to Quaintown. Today I want to talk a little bit about Daisy Duck, Donald State. I'd like to do a card spotlight on this card in particular, just because I think there's a couple of cons and a lot of pros. I've been hearing a lot of chatter about this card, and a lot of people have been asking in social media on why this card is actually so sought after. Let's just read the card. We've got an uninkable card here. It's a character. It's got strength of 1, willpower of 4. Only costs 1 ink to play. Has a passive ability. Whenever this character quests, each opponent reveals the top card of their deck. If it's a character card, they may put it into their hand. Otherwise, they put it on the bottom of their deck. First off, let's just talk a little bit about the cons of this card. 1, it's uninkable. So if you're playing 4 of this in your deck, you're reducing the number of inkable cards in your deck overall. Second, she has a chance to help your opponent draw character cards. This increases their card advantage and pool of potentially inkable cards and playable cards. Keep in mind that unless your opponent plays an all-character deck though, the average card advantage given to your opponent will be less than 1 per quest. So if they have a deck with 60 characters, every time she quests, you're going to lose 1 card advantage. But if they have a deck with, let's say, 30 characters, the average card advantage that you're going to lose is half a card. And then lastly, because she only costs 1, she's probably not going to be singing many songs unless there's like a sing together song that you want to play. As far as I know, there's only 3 songs in the current catalog of Lorcana that are 1 ink, and that's Reflection, It Calls to Me, and I Will Find My Way. So again, not a valuable singer, but maybe helpful in a sing together situation. Regardless, she's probably going to be more useful for questing anyway. As far as I can see it, that's pretty much all of her disadvantages. It's pretty much all the cons. Alright, next, let's move to the pros. Number 1, 1 ink to cast. That's pretty powerful for a 1/4. She's going to hit the board pretty quickly, and you could potentially have 3 of them on the board by the end of turn 2. Mid to late game, she can be a flexible addition to other cards that you're playing. For instance, you've got 5 ink, you can play her and a 4 ink card, so she's easily fit into turns where you have just a little bit extra ink to spare. Lastly, decks with 1-drop characters, I feel like they thrive early on with the ability to get lore on the board quickly. Pro number 2, Daisy has 4 willpower. That's pretty tough for a 1-drop. This makes her pretty difficult to take out in the early game, so your opponent may have difficulty banishing her without using multiple attacks and extra resources, such as lots of ink and actions. That 4 willpower keeps her just out of reach of being banished with many early game cards and challengers, which give her a pretty large chance to stick around for maybe 1 to 3 quests, which can mean a return of 2 to 6 lore for only a 1 ink investment, maybe even more. Again, that 4 willpower synergizes with cards such as Rapunzel, gifted with healing. You can pretty easily challenge a character with 3 strength before playing Rapunzel and take advantage of her mechanic to draw 3 cards yourself. Number 3, Daisy has 1 power, which means even if she's challenged, the challenger will be taking damage. This adds up, and that can be taken advantage of later in the game. There are currently 8 characters that I know of that cost 1 but have 0 power. She's at least got 1. And number 4, your opponent, depending on the deck they play, will often reveal a non-character card, which will be sent to the bottom of their deck. This card could have been something that's pretty essential to their strategy. You can also keep track of what cards are revealed, and then have a little bit of knowledge as to what you can plan to see in the future. Not to mention, if they do draw a character card, at least you know it's in their hand. And that can be pretty advantageous to your strategy moving forward. Even if your opponent does reveal a character card, it could just as easily be a high ink character that is unusable or uninkable at the time. Revealed cards can be useful information to build up on what's in your opponent's deck. This gives you insight as to what they're playing, what to expect later in the game, and maybe even what strategy to use in game 2 or 3. Pro number 5. Extra cards in your opponent's hand may even be irrelevant, depending on the deck that you're using. For instance, you might be planning to drop a whole new world. When you play a whole new world, on turn 5, everybody discards their hand and draws 7 new cards. So it doesn't really matter how many cards are in their hand at that point. Also, you could be playing cards such as Prince John's Mirror. Drop that on turn 3, puts all those extra cards in their hand into their discard, and they're left with just 3 remaining cards. There are also cards such as Clarabelle, Light on Her Hooves, and Clarabelle, Contented Wallflower, which end up taking advantage of your opponent having more cards in their hand. So, as it stands, I believe that the pros greatly outnumber the cons on this card, which is why it seems to be such a sought-after card and a growing staple in many Amber decks. Let me know in the comments if I missed any of the advantages or disadvantages of Daisy Donald's Date. Thanks so much for joining this card spotlight. We appreciate all of our subscribers, and we look forward to doing the next one. As always, thanks for watching, and if you want to become a townsfolk, please hit that subscribe button. We would love to have you as a member of our community. Bye!